Hello, hello. I think we are live right now. Paul, yes, we are live. Everyone in the chat, very nice to see everyone here. Thank you so much for joining. And as always, just let us know if you can hear us properly, if the tech is working. And today we have a lot going on, and I'm here with Paul. He's our French channel manager, so he does the French channel for EU Made Simple. And yeah, Paul, we're here today to talk about literally the last week about the US, right? How they've released a national security strategy about Europe and about the rest of the world, which is definitely not in our favor. And then we've had Elon Musk in the weekend, who's basically said, let's dismantle the EU, with the Russians basically commenting on that post saying, great idea. And then yesterday we've had an interview from Politico with Donald Trump, where Donald Trump is basically saying the EU is weak and the Europe doesn't know what it wants, and well, definitely not very positive. So it's been a hell of a week. I mean, what's your feeling today, Paul?
It's been a long week, and I think for many of us, it's not so much of a surprise what's been coming out of the Trump administration. But I think for some leaders in Brussels, especially for those who have been there for a long time and who have relied on the US for a while, I think it's, this is not a wake-up call. This is a wake-up punch in the face. I mean, I don't know what to call this anymore, right? This is the biggest, most obvious tell ever. I don't know. What do you think, Lambertus? I mean, given that introduction, probably not too positive either.
I mean, I'm already seeing in the chat people are like, "Oh, Elon Musk, who trusts Elon Musk?" Blah blah blah. And it's true. From the three events, the Musk one was probably the least severe, in my opinion, because this report. So let me give a bit of. I mean, probably everyone knows in the chat, but let me give you a bit of background what a national security strategy is from the US. They make this. I think every administration that comes into the White House creates one of these, and it's a lot of people working on it, and it sets the US foreign policy strategy around the world. For everyone to read and everyone to see what the US is up to, really. And it's actually quite an interesting report because it's very concrete on what the US wants to do. And when you hear Trump, you're sometimes thinking, he's just chatting, he's old, he's just like, he doesn't mean what he says, blah, blah, blah. But this report shows that it's not just Trump, it's the entire administration and all of their and all the institutions around that are kind of sharing Trump's view, right? I mean, that's really what this is reinforcing. And I think us Europeans cannot underestimate the severity of it.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a breakup like nothing before. And as you say, it's not just Trump and the administration and MAGA and whatever have you. This is the CIA, the FBI, which he has purged. This is, multiple defense institutions who are now researching actively how to achieve these MAGA goals that were outlined during both his campaign and now, Project 2025. That's another thing we haven't talked about in a while. And his current geopolitical strategy that is now in pen and paper, right?
Yeah. And that's okay. So just give you an overview of the live stream today. So we're going to spend 40 minutes. We're going to go briefly through the national security strategy. So just everyone's on the same page, what this is about, what we're actually talking about. And then that will take 10, 15 minutes. Then we're going to look into briefly also what the Musk saga was about, because it's just kind of interesting. And then we're going to really look at Europe today, right? So the whole idea is, if we do break ties with the US, what do we need to do? And we're going to start with military today. And then I think, Paul, next week we'll do an episode on what? Economics, right?
Yeah.
And then exactly. And the week after that, we're going to look at culture, I think you mentioned.
Yeah, the three big ones.
Awesome. All right. Okay. So let's, without further ado, if you haven't read the national security strategy, no worries. We're going to go through it. So first thing that stood out, promoting European greatness. Not sure this. Let's give it the benefit of the doubt. The first thing you do have to agree with, right? Because it reads, continental Europe has been losing share of GDP down from 25% in 1990 to 14% today, partly owing to national and transnational regulations that undermine creativity in industriousness. Okay,
that's true. I mean, we've argued on this on the channel, right? We have too many transnational regulations, and we can have a big long debates about the EU regulations. I guess it's not that he's wrong about this. Is that why is it in a U.S. national strategy document? Right. This is our problem, not theirs. But again, it's true what he's saying, or what they are saying here. It's down to 14%, which is quite impactful.
But Paul, let me ask you this. So the next sentence, but this economic decline is eclipsed by real and the more stark prospect of civilizational erasure.
Yeah, that's wild. Yeah.
I mean, sorry, I keep laughing, but I think that is very wild. I mean, you're writing about allies here, right? I mean, that's the thing that you can't forget. We are supposed to be U.S. allies.
Yeah, I mean, saying it like this, I mean, it's especially worrying in the context of the rest of the document. Now, we don't have time to go through the whole document today, but we're comparing how they're talking about the European Union and, for example, China or Russia. And civilizational erasure is a crazy statement. I mean, coming from the MAGA line, we know exactly what they're talking about. They're talking about mass migration, right? That's majorly what they're talking about. And if they're talking about mass migration, then they're playing into the theme of the far right parties, not only MAGA but all across Europe, which have this theme of civilization replacement.
Right. I mean,
and that's why that's there, I think.
Yeah. If we go down a little bit, and I marked yellow beneath it. So they mentioned sovereignty is an issue. Migration policies is an issue. Censorship and free speech is an issue. Suppression of political opposition is an issue. And the catering birth rates and the loss of national identity. So those are I think they're culture war issues, right, with the European Union today.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, it's not the issue that they are problems maybe in European countries. We can debate on those as Europeans. It's just that why is this in their national security document?
Yeah.
Again, it's our responsibility. Migration is our topic. It shouldn't be influenced by MAGA or any sort of party outside, right? This is election interference. This is not freedom of speech and freedom of democracy.
I mean, I think you summed up really, really well there, because this is interference in elections and interference in our politics, which over the last decades is something that we unofficially, or at least, we kind of agreed that we would not interfere in, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And this is what it's blatantly doing. I mean, if you look a little bit more into this document too, they're blatantly behind the far right. I mean, the more extreme parties, I should say, throughout Europe, right? I mean, and that becomes very, very clear in this document.
It's almost like a rallying call, isn't it? I mean, as we go through the document, and as you said, we'll see more of those far rights, almost not teasers or Easter eggs, like just pushing for them. It really just seems like a rallying call for the far right all over Europe, which has its own set of ramifications. We just started this live stream, but for example, the AFD is very pro-Trump, whereas, for example,
they're there right now. Sorry to interrupt you, Paul. The AFD flew to Washington today. Not the whole AFD, but 25 officials from the AFD party. They flew there today to have a big meeting with the Republicans.
A big pilgrimage, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for me, again, it just shows they're part of the Patriots for Europe. But how is that patriotic? We're currently in probably one of the worst weeks with our relations with the USA.
It's an influence campaign to try and gain American dominance over European politics. That's really what they want to do. Yeah. Right? They want to come in and they want to decide how the EU should be run, because they're losing their grip on us as Europeans. As the European Union gets stronger and stronger and people realize it's more and more necessary, they're starting to lose their grip and their influence over Europe. I mean, that's what I see.
And that's exactly my hypothesis too. I really wonder how important for them is this culture war. So this whole sovereignty, migration, freedom of speech, etc. Are these really... these are the issues they're pushing, but for me, it's almost a wrapper around what they really want to do. And that is to make Europe unstable, instabilize or unstabilize, my God, my English, the European project, Europe. And I think the only thing currently that's really standing up, even though I wish it would stand up more, to the American or to the US administration is the EU, right? Yeah. We've seen this with the fines that we've seen against big tech. They're small fines, sadly, but they're fines nonetheless. Against big tech. So there is something happening. We are trying to fight for trade, a better trade deal. We are fighting for other trade deals around the world, etc. So I think the EU, in American Trump interests, is why they're doing this, trying to break it. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, if you look at what they're doing to democracy in the U.S., I mean, it's not exactly what we would call a European model of democracy, right? Well, one where institutions are quite well respected. I would say that it's very worrying for not even Europe, but democracy in the world. There's not many of us left if you take out America,
Yeah,
and some European countries.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Before we go to the next part of their strategy, let's have a look at the chats. We have one super chat. Thank you so much, Nick Trimpus. Trump's US cannot be trusted. The EU leader should stop trying to satisfy the bully. He literally has said how he wants to interfere in our elections. Thank you, Nick, for your chat. I think we talked about it. It's exactly what's happening. And again, my hypothesis is he wants to unstabilize our European project and the European Union. All right, let's go to the next one. So I think this is quite interesting too. I'll read it out. So for anyone else listening, over the long term, so this is part of the strategy too. Over the long term, it's more than plausible that within a few decades at the latest, certain NATO members will become majority non-European. As such, it is an open question whether they will view their place in the world or their alliance with the United States in the same way as those that signed the NATO Charter. I mean, you can interpret this a lot of different ways, but it's, again, I'll let you go first.
Look, this is the MAGA playbook. I'm not going to sit here and debate demographics of European countries, migration. It's a whole different issue than the migration in America, right? Migration in America is completely different than migration in Europe, especially to do with, for example, our issues with Islamic radicalization, which, depending on if you're left, if you're right, you'll have different views on. The problem about this is, this is a blatant call to action to the far right in Europe. Again, interference. You might sit here, if you're someone who is far right, and you might sit here and agree with this statement, but this is very worrying both for NATO, which is directly going to affect our own security. That is basically a way of stepping back of NATO and giving it justification. And again, undermining our own democracy and democratic systems and freedom of speech. They should not be interfering with the far right. They should not be rallying far right sentiment across Europe. They should be a neutral party, which is a NATO ally. They should behave like an ally.
Can't say it better. Let's continue to the next part. So, and here, I think here it really becomes quite clear, and I think there's some very interesting comments to make here. So this is, again, part of the strategy for anyone that came to the live stream. We're looking at the US strategy for Europe, so their foreign policy strategy. And here they made a couple of prioritizations. So first of all, reestablishing conditions of stability within Europe and strategic stability with Russia. And Paul, I mean, this is what I think is so crazy about the strategic document. It treats China quite neutrally, right? Not as an enemy, not as an ally, but neutrally. It treats Russia in the document the same way, not as an ally, not as an enemy, neutrally. And then Europe, who has been an ally of the US for, decades once again. I mean, we went to war with them in Afghanistan, right? I mean, let's not forget the things that we've done together. Yeah. And we are basically coming out as the enemy, almost. Well, not almost, pretty much in this entire document. And here you can see it once again, this Russia-friendly approach within the document. Again, establishing the whole fact that the US, or the Trump administration, I should say, is not on the side of Europe on this, in this Russia-Ukraine war.
Yeah, and it's almost kind of, I'm reminiscing back to the first days of the Trump administration when it came to Russia, Ukraine, Europe, and we were always wondering. I remember having these conversations with you. Are they completely incompetent, or are they working against us? Do you remember these conversations? At first, we were saying, I remember. They have no idea what they're doing. Maybe he's just new. They're confused. They'll get to the end of it. They'll try to figure it out. And it seems like no, we've been acting almost complacent and trying to turn a blind eye on their actions, but it's completely now visible what they're trying to do. They're trying to get rid of the Russia-Ukraine problem by selling out Ukraine. They don't want to be a part of European security, and that includes NATO, which has massive ramifications, not just for Russia, Europe, and Ukraine, but also for China, Taiwan. And it's basically withdrawal from American interests, not only from the European continent, but also from protecting democracy as a whole throughout the entire world.
Yeah, 100%.
Very concerning.
100%. I mean, that's very clear in the document. That's not what they're about anymore.
Absolutely.
And that's almost, Paul, the sad thing is that's what I really feel back in the past is what connected Europe with the US. You know, it was values, the idea of democracy, human rights, things like that is what connected us. And that's now, cut through.
Yeah.
All right, let's look at another one. I think I'm going to go down a couple. Here's one. Opening European markets to US goods and services and ensuring fair treatment of US workers and businesses. I mean, I almost get sick in my mouth when I read that. I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah. I mean, what are your thoughts? I mean, I know, you're a big proponent of European goods and trades. I mean, it's horrible.
I mean, for God's sake, we signed a trade deal 3 months ago, which was so lopsided in favor of the US. They basically put 15% on our goods coming to the US or going to the US, and now they're basically saying we need to open European markets even more while putting up tariffs ourselves. I don't really know. It's not exactly that they're working towards this. They want everything from us and give us very little in return. But yeah, I mean, what's your thought on that?
I mean, it's just they. I think this is basically a reflection of our complete weakness, and this is where I have to agree with Trump. We are weak. We fold at the earliest opportunity, and what happens when you fold to a bully? They come back for more. We gave them some tariffs. He came back for more. We gave him 5% NATO expenditure. He came back for more. Now they want more European, opening European markets even more to US goods and services. How much more can we give? We gave them the entire digital market, right? Everything. Yeah. We gave them social media. We gave them cloud infrastructure. Everything was given to them. AI. We gave them tariffs, right? Super easy tariffs. We gave them a complete dominance over the dollar. The dollar is dominant in Europe. And we basically changed our financial markets to adhere to the American ones so that we could continue trade and investment. And now they're asking for more. This is someone holding a gun to us. I mean, this is racketeering, basically.
To be honest, I think this probably relates more to services too in this sentence, because
that's true. Yeah.
You're right. Europe has been weak, but I don't think it has been completely non-reactive, right? Because in this year alone, we fined Apple 500 million. Yes, it's peanuts, I know, but still we fined them. We fined Meta 200 million. We fined Google almost 3 billion. And now lately, I think last week we fined X 120 million. So yeah, 3 out of the 4 fines are puny, tiny, but we are starting with enabling or using the DMA and DSA, the 2 big European regulations, right? So don't you think it's that the US is also a bit precautionary, knowing, oh, this might get worse, and that's exactly what they're trying to resist with this sentence, so to speak.
Yeah, I think you're right in terms of they want to set the groundwork for further expansion on that, right? But what I'm confused about is, China held the line, Brazil held the line. America put 40% tariffs on China. They put 40% right back.
Yeah,
and they were willing to take the whole economy down with it. But guess what? It's over now. Or, I mean, I don't know the latest updates, but it seems like the war died down. I mean, Trump cut back the tariffs, and now apparently they're friends again, and America doesn't care about Taiwan. Complete win for China. So, why can't we do the same? Is a question which we're going to be asking ourselves for the next few decades, I think, unless we change our strategy very quickly.
Yeah, I agree. Let's go to the chat briefly. So we have another question from Nick. Nick, we're going to save that question for the end because it's not really in the content we're talking about right now, but we won't forget, I promise. And there's another person, so Incorruptu, right here, who wrote, the EU is not weak. The EU is thinking before action, and we have a lot to think about, and not in any real hurry to be pushed around by the US or Russia. We will do this, or our EU way. It's that simple. What do you think about that, Paul? So he's basically saying it's not weak. It's just the EU's thinking before acting.
I mean, it's good to think. It's good to think before you act, right? And it's okay. It's good to not lash out, right? You don't want to lash out immediately. That being said, we live in a world where we need quick action, right? Decisions are made by people now. Institutions apparently are not cared for in America. They're not cared for in China or Russia. So I agree that we need to think before we act, and the EU will mount a response, and we'll see how that response fares. But this is why we need European reform. We need to be able to make those hard decisions quite quickly in a way that's quite democratic, right? So maybe someone who's actually representative of the whole union who can make those decisions and who can just make those decisions and try to figure it out. I mean, what do you think, Lambertus?
Yeah, I agree with you, but I really had a moment on Monday where I kind of just got sad again, because we have Friedrich Merz, the German chancellor, who went in front of the cameras. I think it was Monday. And he basically said, in response to the document, the first part, which was quite okay, he basically said, we understand the America First policy from the White House, but we do not understand America only. That's something that, in our view, doesn't work, which I thought was okay. But then the second part of his answer was, yes, and if Trump doesn't want to work with Europe, it's literally what he said, then let's work with Germany, work with Germany, he said. And I'm just like, this is exactly what the Trump administration wants, right? Yeah. We know that Trump much rather will deal with the European leaders themselves than with a institution like the EU, which represents 27 countries. And if, the 27 countries are unified, is a lot more powerful. So I just don't understand why Merz is saying things like that. It's either just stupidity, a stupid comment, or he just doesn't know he doesn't know what's going on. Strategically, it doesn't make any sense for me.
Yeah, I mean, that's you've hit the nail there. I think it's raising the white flag. It's showing disunity. It's exactly what the Americans want. They want disunity. They thrive in disunity. Not just America. I mean, I'm picking on America a lot because it's the US document here and they're supposed to be our allies. But this is the Russians. This is the Chinese economy that wants to take advantage of the European one. Every single opponent to the EU is an opponent to the EU because they want to see us disunified, disorganized, and organize a bad and slow response. It's always the same thing. I bet Merz is saying that because Germany's economy has struggled to get back on track, and I think the polls are weakening. So he's trying to find something, anything, right? And he's been very hurt by these American tariffs. But it's not by buddying up to the US that it's going to fix anything. Does he think that the auto tariffs will just disappear once he goes to Washington and shakes Trump's hand? I don't think so. I wouldn't be so naive.
I really hope it was just a naive moment where he wasn't thinking, because to be honest, he did seem at the start of his term very pro-European and pro-EU and wants to push the continent further. But that sentence, that wasn't smart because it plays into the American hands. Okay, quickly, here's one more sentence that I think we should talk about. Ending the perception and preventing the reality of NATO as a perpetually expanding alliance. In other words, Ukraine won't join NATO.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
This is we covered this in our last live stream. This looks like it came out of Putin's mouth. I mean, it's phrase it in Russian. I'm sure it'd work well. I don't know. I think it's exactly what it seems. No more Ukraine, right? And then no more expansion. That also means Moldova, probably Georgia, if ever they're under threat by Russia. So this is quite tragic. And I guess we'll get to that at the end of the live stream with our little graphic, not to spoil anything, but there's alternatives that are possible.
Yeah, we definitely will need to get there soon. But before we go to the next page, quickly to our chat. So we do have a super chat here. It's from Durin Björnsen. I appreciate you guys, but you need more online presence and more TikTok and Instagram shorts where you can get the points in 5 to 10 seconds. The attention span of younger generations. United EU. Well, he's kind of preaching to the choir, right?
Yeah. No, he's right. Yeah, we need to do that
next year. So we have big plans for next year. 2026, we're going to make lots of shorts and hopefully also put them on other platforms. And we know, Björn, I mean, let me talk about Germany. Under 30s. Paul, maybe a quick fact before we continue. Under 30s in Germany. So, men and women, 50% of the under 30s voted for either the far right AfD or the far left Die Linke. So wow. 50% of the young generation going for the two extremes in politics, which is just insane.
That is extremely worrying, not just now, but in 30 years from now, what that will give.
Yeah, 100%. Anyway, let's continue. So before we go to the proposal that what Europe needs to do, I also just wanted to quickly have a look at Elon's little session on Saturday, I think it was, or Friday, where he pretty much reinforced the document almost, or even went a step further, where he said the EU should be abolished and sovereignty returned to individual countries. so that governments can better represent their people. And look who replied. Medvedev from Russia, the ex-president, replied with exactly. I mean, it's just, yeah, insane, isn't it? Really. Go ahead.
Comedy writes itself. I mean, this is comedic timing to an incredible degree. I just don't think the right people will see or understand it. Unfortunately, I hope that that this can be propagated as much as possible, because this is wild. This is absolutely wild. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. Yeah.
But again, and this kind of plays into my whole hypothesis again, right? That Elon Musk here, he doesn't want to abolish the EU for sovereignty to individual countries. I honestly don't think he cares any less, right, about the sovereignty of European countries, right? And he also mentions freedom of speech. I think freedom of speech, I don't know, but I think again, it's also part of this wrapper around the real issue that he has, is that European Union is regulating big tech, and that is a risk to his platform X and to all of the big tech companies in the US.
Absolutely. I mean, we keep saying it, right? Like if France or Germany were to regulate by themselves, nobody would care, right? They would withdraw from the American or French market, from the German or French market. But if you regulate the entire EU, I mean, you can't like avoid that. So you have to use these adhere to these regulations. So you're absolutely right. If the EU stopped existing, then Musk would probably make a lot of money, because less regulations means more profit for them.
Well, yeah, dispersed European Union, which means all the bilateral deals that all of the European countries would have with the US are favorable to the US, right? Exactly. And the second point is if there's foreign policy issues, so the US, I don't know, does something in the rest of the world, which normally as an EU we wouldn't like, as single countries wouldn't say anything. Or even worse, we might follow them as vassals, because we're so weak alone, sadly, because we're so small. That's the issue.
I'm just thinking of France by itself. I was talking to someone the other day, and they said, well, if France were by itself, right, we would never have had 15% tariffs on the US. And I said, no, we would have had 50, 60%, right? It would have been much, much worse, because we have zero leverage. Think of all those countries, right? Cambodia, Thailand, Vietnam
was very high, I think. Yeah,
that was massive. Laos, and they had no leverage whatsoever. So they had to suck up to Trump, wait for their turn in line to get a meeting to try and hash out a deal. It would be the same for us, especially since he hates us. So maybe the far right governments would get better treatment, even though, let's say, Orban hasn't really had that so far. Kind of. But let's say a left-leaning country in the EU would wait their turn in line quite a long time for a deal with Trump.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So, yeah, we saw this. I mean, this is another, not much to talk about here, but I thought this was also quite interesting. Elon Musk responding to someone saying the Fourth Reich. It just gets sillier and sillier.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right. Okay. What about this, Paul? This is something I think you wanted to share.
Yes. So this is a bill. This is a bill. I don't want to missay it, but I think it's for the House of Representatives to leave NATO, for the US to leave NATO. Now, this is not going to pass for many reasons. Leaving NATO would be quite complicated. It would require, I think, 2/3 of a Senate majority. It's not going to pass. But it's had some movements. The person who submitted this is not massive in MAGA, but they have a following. And, Not a Trusted Organization Act, NATO Act, is exactly what MAGA sees NATO as, especially the hardcore members, which have major influence in the party. I think this is an indication that the US does not care about NATO. We've seen NATO Article 5. We've seen that it's not as robust as people keep mentioning it to be. And I think this is not a warning sign. This is a blaring alarm that we need to get together and try to form a solid defense to the Russians, because NATO won't be able to do that for us.
Yeah, I mean, what kind of message does this send to our adversaries, right? Like, literally first in the strategy document, openly questioning NATO there, not directly, but like indirectly, by saying if it's still relevant in the years to come when Europe becomes non-European. And then you have bills like this, which make it into the House of Representatives in the States about, well, basically leaving NATO. I mean, day by day, the trust really disappears, or the perception that NATO will act if one of the NATO countries will be attacked just gets less and less, right? That's what it does.
I mean, do you think NATO will work if there was an attack, let's say, in a 6 months' time on Lithuania, Estonia?
It's very difficult. I mean, it depends what kind of attack, right? Because I really do think if like tanks cross the border and like invade the country, maybe I'm too optimistic. I do think there will be a NATO response. But the thing is, our adversaries are smarter than that. It will not be something like that, you know? It will not be a conventional act of war. It will be small things slowly, you know, like a false flag operation at the border in a town which is 60% Russian anyway, in Estonia, for example, or 40% Russian. I can't remember the exact numbers, you know? And then in a false flag, I mean, you know, Putin will deny it was him, you know, things like that. So then it's not clear who it was. It's not clear if it was really an act of war. And then, of course, lots of countries will probably be like, well, we're not going to send our military there. You know, I think, and that's how it will slowly escalate. I think that something like that would be very, very, very hard for NATO to handle.
I'd probably start with drones and balloons.
Correct. It's already starting, man. It's already starting.
Yeah. No, but you're absolutely right. That's exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, it's ridiculous. We should have shot those planes down. They're still flying. They're in their hangars. They should have been shot down. Those drones, they should be shot down. They're still flying over France. They were there 4 days ago, 4 drones over a French submarine nuclear base. This is absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
It's insane. I think most people know this already, but I keep using this example. In 2016, one jet entered the Turkish airspace, a Russian jet. I think it took the Turks 15 seconds to shoot it down.
Yeah. Oh.
And it never happened again. Or I don't want to, it might have happened again, but I've not heard anything since.
15 seconds too long. I mean, how long was it over Estonian airspace? 4 minutes? I forget now. It's ridiculous. But I think that's along with this bill and the current Trump administration, the current Trump administration's new plan is just a notice of, I mean, it's a blaring alarm that we need reform with NATO at the very least, or some other alternative.
Talking about reform, let's go to the next part of our live stream, because I think that fits it really well. And so basically for the audience, I mean, some are probably listening, not watching, but this is probably where you would like to watch, is what we're showing here is how our military, so literally I think we should say here, like our defense in Europe, right? How it used to be yesterday, so without Trump in power, without the strategic document, how it is today with American withdrawal most likely, or at least now that America is slowly withdrawing. And then here we have also a category tomorrow, Paul. I think you created this, right? About how we could work on European sovereignty, right? Have I said that correctly?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's exactly it.
Okay, so maybe the first one at the moment. So again, for anyone that's new in the live stream, it's going to be a 3-part live stream series. Today we're talking about military, so how Europe can get more autonomy when it comes to defense. Next week we'll look at economy, and in 2 weeks' time we will look at culture. So yeah, firstly, so troops in Europe. Should we have a look here? This is it, right?
It's all the troops, American troops in Europe. So you can see there's a lot of bases. I'm very proud of this, actually. There are none in France. We're very happy about that here in France. But there's a bunch in Germany, akin to West Germany. Again, remember the Soviet bloc, Germany was split in 2, so there's a lot in West Germany. A few in Poland too. You've got quite a few in Romania, and some in Turkey, and quite a few in Italy as well.
But okay, so you say, okay, so let me challenge you there for a bit. So you're very proud there's none in France. I mean, France has always said autonomy. We don't need foreign troops in our country. We have our own, which I understand. But I know in the long term, we don't want the US troops there. I understand that, because we want to be able to defend ourselves. But don't you think in the short term, it's probably good to have them here? Or do you see that differently?
I think for troops to be effective, they need to have a chain of command that is willing to utilize them in a way that will be effective. And since Trump is the president of the US, again, tanks rolling over Estonia, is it going to happen? You know, I wouldn't say it's happening, next month, right? But if it were to happen next month, do I properly trust Trump to use those troops to defend, for example, Estonia? And if so, does the American troops being in Europe change the mindset of European countries that would have mobilized their troops otherwise? So by that, I mean, because there's an American force there, would Germany, for example, not send their force or try to coordinate with an American force that just might not show up or do the job as expected? I'm not here to say that I wish they would all leave tomorrow. I think it's good that they're there. America has been our ally for a very long time. I think we should be grateful as well to what they've done to protect us, during the Cold War, during even post Cold War times. But I think what we need to do is we need to act as if they weren't there and take our own defense into our own hands, instead of having to rely on American troops that don't have our best interests in mind, quite possibly.
So do you think it's more of like, let's rip the Band-Aid off and tell them to, pitch a hike, go back to the US? Or, yeah, go ahead.
Not tomorrow, no. And what I'm saying is basically, I'd love for the US to be our allies. I love the US in terms of, generally, I've always looked up to the US, and I wish they could be our ally. It's clear they don't want us, and so we should behave in a way that they don't want us, and so we should be able to do our own thing. So I'm not saying they should all leave tomorrow, but I think the goal should be, if they were to leave, it shouldn't make a difference.
Yeah. Okay, but nonetheless, we do have a lot of troops, American troops in Europe, a lot of them in Germany. And with these troops, there's also another thing that they give us, right? And that's nuclear deterrence.
Yes.
Because I think the official number is not known, but I think there is, what were the estimates? 40 nukes or something? 40, 50? I'm not exactly sure, but quite a few bases where they can launch nuclear bombs from, right? And that's something we're severely lacking in Europe too, because only France and the UK has them.
Nuclear umbrella. We made a whole video about it.
Yeah. Okay. So let's leave it there. That's something for the for the video to explain. Let's go back here. So maybe explain quickly what you mean with today and then the tomorrow of what we can actually do to make up for these American troops in Europe.
Yeah. So the point of this graphic, right, is before on the left hand side is what we had basically the day Trump got elected, the day before that, and what we have now, really. But what's quickly becoming apparent is not the case. And we can go down the list and see item by item. But today, if America were to withdraw, they haven't done it yet. They're doing it progressively, right? For example, cutting off aid to Ukraine slowly or reprioritizing. They also wanted to move some troops away from certain countries. I think they withdrew from Poland partially. But that would be the situation where they were to withdraw to a critical level, right? And we did nothing to replace it. And tomorrow would be, what can we do to replace the Americans leaving Europe? So the first point there, European troops under one command, EU weaponry that is built in Europe that will stimulate European growth, sovereign military assets, which would include satellites or cyberspace security, then arming Ukraine with our own production assets, and of course, a European security guarantee.
Very interesting. I would love to zoom in a little bit with what you mean with the 200,000 European troops under one command. Would that be going the European army direction, or what do you think? Or would it be a national component of all the different countries that are working under one European umbrella? So like a NATO, but like a NATO for Europe, or what is your thinking there?
I mean, I actually watched a really interesting report. I forgot the name of the institute, but they were talking just about this, of how Europe could replace Americans that are leaving. And one of the proposals was to make a 200,000 strong European troop structure. And obviously, there's many ways you can do this, right? I don't think we're going to get to a point where the EU can create a joint unified army, next year. As much as I would hope for it to be so, I don't think it's going to be possible in the time frame of 1 year. But you could have, for example, a joint European structure similar to NATO, structured in the same way as NATO, just without the Americans. Cut out the American middleman. And that could work extremely well without having to create a new constitution or new laws. But just you wouldn't have American commanders that could potentially come in the way during a defense if they were not involved in the defense, if that makes sense. So how do you see it? Go ahead.
I think it very clearly links to the video we made about how a European army would work. And I keep calling it not a European army, but an army of Europeans. So the whole idea, just like you mentioned, is we are far, far, far away to create like a European army where we literally recruit in different countries and we have maybe even a new defense institution in the EU, or it's under the Commission. I mean, there's loads of question marks where the army would sit as a component of the European Union. I think we're very, very far from that. But just like you mentioned, that's why I like the concept of an army of Europeans, where everyone would, contribute troops, in this case, at 200,000. And yeah, it would exactly have a NATO structure. So, I mean, I'm just repeating what you said, but we have a whole video on it, which I think explains it really, really well. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's great because it's hard not to be for it, right? Who are you going to talk to unless they're anti-NATO, but if you're pro-NATO, it's hard to be anti this kind of structure, because you're basically doing the same thing just without the Americans.
Paul, 81% of European citizens want the EU to do more on defense together, right? Literally, that's a majority I've not seen for anything. I mean, that's even
so
higher
true.
than trust in the EU, like it's very,
Yeah.
very, very high. But I feel that our politicians are just going all national. I mean, for God's sake, Germany is still buying F-35 jets from the US, and so are many other European nations, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's just really frustrating, It's like we have all the answers given to us, but we won't. Why? It's this complete lack of bravery. You said it in your last video, this lack of courage from our leaders. They're so scared of the nationalist parties that they almost stutter. They block up, and they can't manage to do the reforms that will actually keep us safe, that will keep them winning elections too. Because if you address these problems that the Europeans are having, you actually address security, you address high expenses of living, you create the capital markets union, and you grow the European economy with your own economy, you're not going to have these problems anymore that are beating you up electorally. But they're not brave enough to do it.
I think let's move to another topic, which I thought was quite interesting. So the last point here. So we're talking about a US committed to NATO. Then what's happening is that NATO is getting broken. And then we're talking about EU safety guarantees. And I had a brief look at the EU safety guarantee today. So let me go there. I mean, many people don't know this, but the EU itself, Paul, also has a defense clause, right? It's Article 42.7 of the Treaty of the European Union. But basically, the important sentence here is that there is a mutual defense obligation requiring EU member states to assist any member facing armed aggression on its territory with all means in their power.
Yeah.
Consistent with NATO commitments on the UN Charter. And I really think it's interesting, all means in their power, which is quite a strong wording of the sentence. And maybe before I get your opinion on this, on the right, I put the NATO Article 5. So, I mean, I think everyone's familiar with it. But nonetheless, I think that the wording is quite interesting here too. Because if you read a little bit down here, it says, will assist the party or parties so attacked by taking forthwith, individually and in concert with other parties, such action as it deems necessary. So the European version is all means in their power, and the NATO version is such action as it deems necessary. I mean, I don't know what you think, but the EU clause we already have today seems to be quite a lot stronger than the NATO one. I mean, what do you think? Yeah.
I mean, America could send 5 MAGA hats to Lithuania and call it a day, right?
Right. I mean, Germany would obviously send helmets, right? I mean, that's what they did for Ukraine.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Joking aside, I mean, seriously, joking aside, action as it deems necessary could literally be humanitarian aid. That's it. Right?
It scares the shit out. It scares me so much, honestly. I don't think NATO is as solid as they say. And not just because of the wording in this document, which you highlight is very worrying when it comes down to the nitty-gritty details, but with what the Trump administration, in combination with what the administration is doing, it raises a lot of questions, right?
Yeah. So, is there anything else you'd like to highlight from this graph?
There's one here. There's what's called the PURL, the Priority Ukrainian Requirements List. It's the before last item on the list there. What that is basically a list that Ukrainians of military equipment that Ukrainians want or need. Basically, to give some context, Ukrainians have been buying their equipment for a very long time now, since Trump came back into power. They've been able to pay for it. And they've had this list, which basically gives them access to the most critical requirements first. So as soon as it's produced, it's sent over to Ukraine, and that way Ukraine can use it on the battlefield. It gives them basically a streamlined access to equipment.
Interesting. Okay.
Basically, they want, the MAGA administration wants to cut this. Not only do they want to cut this, they're making a ton of money from these sales, by the way, but they want to stop selling weapons to Ukraine. So not only could we end up with a situation where Ukraine can't buy weapons from the US, even though they're making a ton of money, they could end up with a situation where there's no PURL, and where European orders for military equipment for Ukraine is put at the bottom of the priority list. and no weapons go to Ukraine. So that's another way, another alarm bell in like a choir of why we should have our own military production chains.
It's just, yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. And I know like Rheinmetall, I mean, I live in Germany, right? So I know Rheinmetall is a German firm that creates military equipment. It's expanding like crazy, but these things take time. So my worry really is that if America doesn't provide the equipment anymore, or we don't buy it anymore, we need the time to bridge the gap so that our production gets up to speed so we can supply the weapons that they need. I mean, I'm not an expert in this area, but I mean, what I keep hearing is that we do not have the expertise or the equipment that Ukraine really needs, and only the US can provide this, right? That's the big issue what we have at the moment.
I mean, yeah, the satellites and Starlink we just don't have, even though we really need them.
Yeah. All right, let's go a bit quickly to the chat, see if there's what questions there are. So we had. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
There's a question that was asked that we skipped over, but that might be relevant now.
Yeah, I will definitely. I will go to that in a minute. But we have one here. Siberus 1595. Thanks for your question. One way to prepare for companies to have a plan to contribute to the war effort in case of war. Wait, sorry. Sorry, I'll say it again. One way to prepare is for companies to have a plan to contribute to the war effort in case of war. What will EU Made Simple do in such a case? The EU is invaded. Okay.
EUMS Brigade, let's go.
I mean, I'm not quite sure how to answer that, to be honest. I mean,
well, yeah. I mean, if I'm drafted, I guess I'll fight.
Let's hope.
Yeah. I mean, maybe he's asking because we are a media channel, right? So what would we do? I guess maybe we would make a lot of content on the military situation.
Exactly.
On the ground.
Exactly. All right. Okay. So let's go to some of the super chats we got earlier. So Nick, thank you for another super chat. He said the US should just abolish. Again, the US should be abolished, sovereignty returned to the individual states so that governments can better represent their people. Just send Elon to Mars. Okay, I think that was a joke. He just basically said the quote from Elon and then exactly mentioning that Elon should be sent to Mars. All right. And then we have another super chat from Alexandru Lokdefor, but he has not sent us a message, just 10 Ron from Romania, I think that is. So thank you very much for your super chat there. All right, and a quick call out too before we get to the final part of the stream is if you want to join our Discord, we have an amazing community from EU Made Simple, literally hundreds, I think it's almost 2,000 people now that discuss EU politics, everything, federalization, Ukraine, everything. So if you want to join it, please go to the description of the video. You can find the link, and I think maybe someone can share it in the chat too. And we also have a second Discord server where we literally role play. So if you want to become the prime minister of our federal Europe, that's I think where we are at the moment in like year 2060, you can try to become it. So if you join our Discord server there, feel free. And thirdly, of course, if you do want to support us, it'd be great to see you on Patreon. We live really, members that give us a monthly fee is really how we finance everything. So thank you so much for doing that if you already are. And if you're not, we'd love to have you. All right. Okay, then we have one more question here from Ibrahim 2146. Do you think the Democrats winning in the midterms could affect American foreign policy, especially the stances on EU, Russia, and China?
Well, it depends. Yeah, it could. I mean, it would block a lot of bills that could get through right now the House, but it's hard to say will make the biggest difference because Trump represents foreign policy.
I might have to not disagree, but have a different take here. Is I think if they lose the midterms badly, so imagine the Republicans lose badly, it's Trump's party at the moment, right? So that could potentially also show other Republicans, more traditional Republicans in that sense, like Mitt Romney, not him personally, but his style of politics, to come back into the fray, right? Because maybe if they see they lose the midterm so badly with Trump-style politics, they'll be like, we need to go back to our traditional stuff in the next presidential election. So maybe there will be I don't know, a bit of a tone change, not from the Trump department, but from the US as a whole. I mean, maybe I'm thinking too optimistically, but yeah.
I'm not sure. I guess you could be right. I mean, Trump has to go in 28. Hopefully he doesn't do a third term. But I'm kind of thinking more in terms of what issues do American voters care about? And I'll be honest, I talked to some Democrats back in the US. I talked to them about Ukraine. They really don't care about Ukraine, even the Democrats. There is, of course, a lot of Americans who do care. We know it's not a small issue in the US, but they care more about the economy. They always care more about the economy, about their civil rights, ICE raids, things like this. So I'm not sure it's the winning issue on foreign policy. So even if there was a Democrat win, I'm unsure it would translate directly to a change in foreign policy immediately. But then again, depends how badly they lose. If they win, that's another conversation. But if they lose quite badly, then maybe you're right. Maybe we could be on to a change of gear for the Republican Party.
The only thing, though, Paul, is what I'm worried about, as usual with Europe, is that we get complacent. Like we're so typical. I mean, look, we had Trump for 4 years already. We knew what it was like. I mean, now it's worse than it was back then, but still, we knew what it was like. We knew the issue with NATO. And remember, even to this day, Trump back then standing in front of all the NATO leaders and literally bashing NATO, and everyone was scared he was going to say the words, "I quit," like we had that situation already. Then Trump went, we had Biden, all of Europe was like, we're good. We got US back, back to the old days. Knowing that Trump could come back, we did nothing. Trump comes back. Now we're all under pressure. And now, for example, if these midterms now swing the other way, I'm just a bit scared that all of our leaders will once again, it'll be okay.
Kick back, relax.
Let's wait it out. I was watching a talk show the other day, and I think there was someone from, I don't know, I can't remember what party she was from, but she was literally like, let's wait it out. Like it's 3 more years, then we're okay. And I think that's a terrible approach. Yeah.
Wow. Really? That's crazy. That shows me
German talk show. Yeah, it was on Markus Lanz. Any Germans here probably know Markus Lanz. I can't remember what party she was from, but yeah, that's literally what she said.
But this to me, it's not necessarily even a thing of left versus right. This is almost like a mentality of, I don't want to say the older generation, but perhaps the generation that has had the US as an ally for so long, they just can't fathom the idea of not having the US anymore. It's like almost like a toxic breakup, right? Or like a divorce that they just can't process. Like, no, the Americans will always be there. And I think, and a quick shout out to our next live streams, it's because we have such a rooted connection with America on the cultural level, on the economic level, and how we think. I mean, think about all the Hollywood movies we look at. Think about like the law movies, Better Call Saul, Breaking Bad. We know all about the American issues. Why do I know more about American issues than I know more than about German issues, which are much more pertinent to me as a French person, right? American ones, they're on the other side of an ocean. Why do I care more about their issues than German ones? It makes no sense to me.
It's sadly true. And I have it in my family even, where some of my family members know more about American politics than the Dutch ones.
Wow.
But yeah. All right, we got a final couple of questions, and then we'll finish the live stream. Quickly to ourselves, where are we from? So, Paul, you want to go first? Where are you from?
I'm from France.
And where do you live?
In Paris at the moment. I've lived in the UK for the past few years, which is why I don't have a French accent. It shocks everyone when I tell them. Yeah.
Next question, and I'm from the Netherlands, and I live in Munich in Germany. So I'm making use of the single market. All right, here another question. Do we think that Europe needs a proper leader? So I am very much in favor of, I like how the commission works. I like having a commission president, but I do think there is a slight democratic gap here. I'll be very honest. And this is not, and I do think that the people should be more involved in the election process. So either we have we vote for a president of the EU. I think that could work. It would also get a lot more people involved in Europe and European politics. Or we really live the Spitzenkandidat process. Spitzenkandidat process is that the leader, each party before the elections sets a person up as their front runner, and whatever party wins, the leader of that party or the front runner of that party becomes the president. The EU pretends that's the system that they're using at the moment, but it's not really. At the moment, it gets decided behind closed doors by the national leaders. So that's my take there. Do you have anything to add to that, Paul?
I would say the exact same thing.
Perfect. All right. Okay, fine. Very last question, then we finish. Do you think the current US campaign against EU helps the union or damages it? It's a great question to finish off on.
Wow. Should I start, or do you want to go first?
I start on the last one.
Yeah. So I it's an excellent question, really. And to be honest, I can't help but think that it's a double-edged sword. On one hand, yes, it provides urgency for people like us, people like you who are watching, who care, right? Who knows this is falling apart, who realize that they're under attack, not by just with our nationalist parties, but also from outside, from the US, from Russia, China. On the other hand, we just talked about Merz, how he reacted, right? Maybe some politicians in Hungary who are just unwilling to listen to reason, really. So I think it's very much an active front. If I almost want to say it like this, it's an active front, and it really will depend not just on people like us who make content, not just on our national leaders, but on people like you who care, who engage, who like and watch content and actually talk about it to their friends and their families, why the European Union is important, why we need to work together. So to me, the answer to this question is I have no idea, but I'm going to fight for it to be a unifying force instead of a divisive one. Like my life depends on it.
Yeah, I think that's also similar to me, right? We just don't know. I mean, it really could be the unifying force we need. I mean, the EU has in the past done well when there's been crisis. But I think the things that need to happen here are so much bigger than, for example, a Corona response during Corona, right? I mean, even just looking at what we talked about, the creation of an army of Europeans, this requires 27 leaders all in it and all wanting it. And at the moment, you mentioned Merz, but many leaders are just not talking about it and not promoting it. And if that's not happening, then I don't know, it could go the completely wrong way, where all the countries just start making bilateral deals with the US, which is the worst case scenario.
That will set us back not years, but decades.
Yeah, it would. But I'm an optimistic person, Paul. So there is also good signs, right? Let's looks like we might sign Mercosur next week. That would be an amazing feat. Who knows? And well, let's see what 2026 brings.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. But nonetheless, just to finish it off, we started with this strategy document from the US. I think just to conclude everything, this really makes it completely ink on paper of what the US wants for Europe, and it's not us as allies. And I think that needs to be very, very clear. This is not Trump slipping up in a speech. This is very, very serious, and we need to take it as such.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for watching, and see you in the next stream next week.
Bye, everyone.